Hello, Algebra Lab students. Today we are going to be wrapping up our study of systems of equations by looking at your mastery assignment. And so basically we've talked about three different ways to solve a system of equations. And so what I want to do here is just kind of go through those three different techniques. The first method we looked at was the idea of graphing a system of equations. And so given our two equations, we want to make sure they're in some form we can graph. So like slope-intercept form. And so we want to graph these two equations. So we're going to start by graphing the equation y equals negative 2x minus 1. So where would you start if you were going to graph the equation y equals negative 2x minus 1? All right, so you would start at negative 1, and then you would use a slope of negative 2. And to use a slope of negative 2, where would you go next? Okay, you should go down 2 and over 1. And so that brings you to this point right here, and then we draw our line in. So there's the slope y equals negative 2x minus 1. Okay, now we also want to graph this line y equals 1 half x plus 4. Okay, so if we were going to graph that line, we would start at positive 4 and put our first dot there. And then with a slope of 1 half, that means we go up 1 and over 2. And we sketch that line in, and it looks like this. So that is our graph of this system of equations. But what does that mean that our solution would be? Okay, so remember, the solution is where those lines cross, which in this case is right here. And so we would write down that ordered pair. Remember, when we write down the ordered pair, the x is always the first number, the y is always the second number. So these are our x numbers, these are our y numbers. And so for that point, the x number would be negative 2, the y number would be positive 3. And so the answer we would want to write down there is negative 2 comma 3. So that was our first technique for solving these systems of equations. We found all the solutions to the first equation by graphing a line. We found all the solutions to the second equation by graphing a line, and then the point where they had it in common, that was the solution we were looking for. Okay, the second technique we looked at was this idea of substitution. And with substitution, we want one of our equations to either say x equals or y equals. And so in this case, which equation are we going to start with? Which one says x equals or y equals? Does the first equation say x equals, or does the second equation say x equals or y equals? Okay, it's the second equation that says y equals. And so remember, what we're going to do is we're going to take that equation, that one that says y equals 3x, and then in the other equation, instead of writing a y, when we write it down, we're going to write down a 3x. So I start with that other equation, that equation that says x plus y equals 24. But instead of writing down a y, I'm going to write down a 3x in that spot, because that's what this equation tells me, is that y is equal to 3x. And so I've made that y equal to 3x. This is an equation that we can solve. Okay, so go ahead and solve this equation. What do you get for x? Well, you should have added x plus 3x and gotten 4x, divided both sides by 4, and you get x equals 6. Now remember, that's only part of our answer. We need to have two boxes here. The first box is the x, so we're going to put a 6 in that first box. We still have to figure out the second box. And that's where we go back to this equation we have circled up here. Because if we know that y equals 3x, but now we know that x is equal to 6, that really means that y is equal to 3 times 6. So that means y is equal to what? Well, y is equal to 18. And so then our ordered pair, we got 6 for x, we got 18 for y. And so in our solution up here, we would just write down 6 for x, 18 for y. So that was the second technique we had for solving these systems of equations. The third technique was something called elimination. And so if you remember, with elimination, our goal is to eliminate either the x or the y so that we have an equation that we can solve. And so the way we do that is we multiply the top equation and the bottom equation so that they'll cancel out. And a lot of times we try to get the x's to cancel out by just switching the values here. So in other words, we can take the top equation, and since the x in the bottom equation has a negative 1 in front of it, we'll multiply the top equation by positive 1 and multiply the bottom equation by negative 2. We switch those x's, and remember, you have to switch one of the signs. So switch the x from the top equation to negative 2, made it negative 2 at the bottom. Took the negative 1 on the bottom equation, made it positive 1 on the top. Doesn't matter which one you switch, you just have to switch one of them. Okay, now we're going to multiply the top equation, everything in the top equation by 1, everything in the bottom equation by negative 2. So go ahead and do that. So when you do that, the top equation becomes negative 2x minus 3y equals 9. Bottom equation becomes 2x plus 8y equals negative 34. Now we're going to combine those equations together, because when we do, the x's are going to eliminate. So what's the result when we combine these two equations together? All right, so when we combine these two equations together, we end up with 5y equals negative 25. That's a fairly easy equation to solve. What do you get for y? Well, you divide both sides by 5, you get y equals -5. Now remember, that's only part of our answer. That's what goes in the bottom box. We still got to figure out what to put in the top box up here for x. And so the way we do that is we go back to one of these equations and we use the fact that we know y equals -5. So I'm going to go back to the top equation. So the top equation used to be -2x minus 3y equals 9. Now, though, I know that the y is -5. So let me go ahead and put that in there. Now it's -2x minus 3 times -5 equals 9. So that -3 times -5, don't let that confuse you. That just means plus 15. So now it's -2x plus 15 equals 9. So what's our answer to that equation? Well, you should subtract 15. That gives you -2x equals -6. Divide by -2, and we get x equals 3. And so in our answer, we know x is equal to 3, y is equal to -5. And so put 3 in the top box, -5 in the bottom box. So that's the idea of solving a system of equations by elimination. So in your assignment today, you're just going to be working on your mastery assignment again. Like there's only 10 questions on this one, maybe 3 or 4 graphing, 3 or 4 substitution, 3 or 4 elimination problems. So if you have any questions as you work on that, make sure you send me an email. Look on Canvas. Don't forget that, or send a message on Canvas. Don't forget that on My Open Math, a lot of times it'll have a link to an example or a video you can watch too. And so if you get stuck, you might look at those things as well. But feel free to send me an email or Canvas message as well. All right, good luck to you on your assignment today.